Hold on here, everybody. Stream background. Oh. Hold on here 1 second, people. What up, what up, what up, what up? All right, give me a second. Get this party going. What's up in the hood? There we go. Oh, look at this thing. Whoop. This restream is kind of nice. I don't know what the heck all of it does, but we got all this doohickeys going. Ooh. All right, now we just wait for Armando, and then we get this thing going. What up? How's everybody doing? Cool. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I got a little goose and a gander going, and then we got a potty. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. We fresh to death always. Fresh to death always. All right, let's fucking shred, baby. Let me share my screen. Armando! I can see you.
Blue and white? Okay, there we go.
Oh, look at you,
up, brother?
sexy man.
Look who's talking. How you doing?
God, you are a good-looking human. I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm not into that, but if I was, you'd be my guy.
Oh, man. I'm excited, brother. How you doing?
Hey, life is good, baby. Life is good.
Took me a second to figure. I've never used this before, so I'm going to be just looking around for a second here. So.
Me either.
I created an account and then a link to my YouTube channel. It says you got to wait 24 hours for live streaming. I was like, okay, let me try that again, but whatever. So I did another link with something else, so we'll see.
Hey, all good, brother. All good. Let's go. So what's up, man? Tell me your life problems.
Dude, things are getting better, man. I stopped trying to short the market the day that it actually cracks, which is good.
Hey,
I know, right?
Good.
But like I said, I caught some good trades this morning on the low floats and on the bounce on Settage. So I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Yo, Bracco, baby, you sexy stud. What's going on? All right. Good. Guten Tag, people. Guten Morgen, you choyos. For all you freedom fighters out there also. Happy hump day. Well, the day after hump day. But we got to go do the Lord's work here. All right? So, for those of you guys that don't know, this is Armando de Santos Bolingos Valentes. He is a sexy Spaniard from Croatia, something along this end. He's got a very interesting background. He's been with me moderating my chat room for quite a few years now. I think he's been with me 4 years. When did you take our bootcamp class?
2020, but I was in the chat room 2019 summer. So actually 5 years since I've been with you, 4 years since the boot camp. So
hot damn, man. Two beers in a bucket. There we go. Cool. So let's dig in here, guys. So, you know what me and Armando do, we usually put out a nightly video with the watch list of just all the fun stuff that's going on. But, you know, we figured we'd kind of go over the markets and just do it live, you know, and see what the heck is going on in the world, because, you know, things are getting fast and loose right now. Things are getting fast and loose, and boy, there's a lot of opportunity. You know, for all the people that have been complaining, like market breadth. I don't know if you hear anybody talk about this kind of nonsense. This market's been hot as long as, you know, you've just willing to trade like whatever's hot. You know, and it may only be a handful of names, but man, every single damn day there is some hot setups. Every single week there's like epic setups. Like on Friday, man, when ARM rolled over, Bracco, I saw you put your balls on that one. Nasty, right? There's every day there's something pretty amazing. So this is a good trader's market. And what I like about this market is that you're in the Goldilocks zone of trading. What I mean by Goldilocks zone of trading is that when you are trading stocks, there's a handful of things that you're always looking at. Number one is like your long-term trends. Then, of course, your intermediate-term trends, and then your short-term trends. And so what we're in currently, right, is like the Goldilocks phase of the market where you have a long-term trend, but you're also trending like right up the 9 EMA. And so when you're into that Goldilocks zone where it's like you have a big picture trend and then you're trending up the 9 EMA, that's like your sweet spot to really, really push the table. So, of course, you have to be like not stuck in range, right? So, like as soon as the market breaks this range here and you're still up the 9 EMA and you're in breakout territory, this right here, like this circle of love right here, that's your Goldilocks zone. And anytime the market's in the Goldilocks zone, you want to be stepping up multiple things. Number one, you want to be stepping up your risk profile. What I mean by stepping up your risk profile is, right, you want to be actually taking on more risk. Now, it doesn't mean you're taking on more risk per trade, like, hey, I'm willing to lose $500 in trade and I'm willing to lose $1,000. You may step up your risk profile by just adding frequency to your trades. Hey, I normally take 5 trades a day and I risk $400 per trade. Now I'm going to take 7. Now I'm going to take 8. Now I'm going to take 9. Now I'm going to take 10. So you can up your risk profile in numerous different ways. One is by being in bigger size, of course, but the other one is just by taking more frequency. And that's specific to the kind of Goldilocks phase of the markets, which you only get a handful of months of the year. So you do have to be super mindful. Like you don't get like what we're seeing here in the last like 2-3 weeks is like a little bit of a rare bird. So just something to kind of be mindful of. Armando, give me your read on like what you're seeing with the market. You think that this thing's got legs or no legs?
Yeah, I mean, I was just making a couple notes, and as you're talking about there about this being like a time to kind of push it, right? One of the things that I think is good for, even for myself, me and you kind of talk offline and stuff a bit. I need to remind myself too. And when you kind of get in these grind up markets where, it's really time to put the pedal to the metal, one thing is like there's setups all the time and to the long side. And you may think like, okay, what I've been longing the last week may be done for a bit here. But that doesn't mean that now is the time to short. So you don't want to try to get too cute and smart in these markets where you're essentially trying to fight that. And I've fallen into that trap a few times over the years where you get these grind up markets and you're like, how far can this go? And in reality, if you look at some of these other grind up markets in the NASDAQ from the last 5-6 years, they can last 4 or 5 months of grinding up. And really, the goal is to be kind of rotating into new sectors. And one of the things I actually noticed today, as I was kind of just looking over the market a bit before this, is that despite the NASDAQ and the semis, having kind of a big red day, if you went and looked at some of these other sectors like XLF, XLU, XLV, they actually had pretty solid days today, which is kind of, a good sign of a healthy market when, tech and momentum starts to maybe pull back, but other things can kind of start to get going. And that's just, my mindset is what I'm seeing in that is this is a good rotation. If we get a few days pullback in the NASDAQ, there's nothing to really worry about in that sense then.
Sure. And guys, there's, always a couple things to think about in here. Like, a lot of times people are like, hey, we want to see more stocks break out. We want to see like all of this stuff, right? Oh, healthy markets have a lot of stocks breaking out. Healthy markets have, really good breadth and all this kind of stuff. In the end, though, in a market where there's only a handful of things really moving. So like, for example, for us, it's been, right, all these semiconductors, you have your, NVIDIA, which has actually not been a hot trader for me of recent, but MU has, and, Qualcomm has. So, you have like a handful of stocks that have been hot this whole year. And then you have like, things with big range, like Coin. I think Coin's been a really, not an easy trader, but it's had a lot of range this year. So there's been like a subset of like 10 to 12, like kind of high beta names. And they've been giving huge range though. And at least what to trade. Is it ideal when only like 10, 15 stocks are really cruising? Maybe, maybe not. But what we have seen is like, I don't, if you guys remember during like COVID times, for example, dude, it would take hours to go through all the fucking stocks. Like if you did a 4% breakout scan, you'd be sitting there You'd be sitting there all night, like looking for stocks, trying to figure out which ones are great, which ones are this. Then you'd be waking up in the pre-market and you're like, you'd see stocks running like 100%, 200%. Like, to me, like, it's fun, but, there's also, a lot more work that goes into kind of that stuff too. So, having a market where at least what's moving it ain't the end of the world. Like, it's not necessarily, right? Like, it ain't necessarily ideal for most people, but if you don't mind trading the same shit all the time, then it's not so bad. So let's take a look at some of these indexes and then kind of go over our thoughts, and then we'll kind of let's whip through a couple stocks here. So Armando, what do you kind of see on the QQQs here? For me, it's like, we're still really overbought. Like, yes, we had a one down day, but we're still like 5-6 points away from the 9 EMA. So I'm thinking, we still have some back end filling going. Now, every time I've thought that of recent, it's not necessarily been like that. A case in point, this specific day right here, Thursday, 5/23, it looked like, you see this huge engulfing candle. That's like a gap up in a total red roll, right? When you see something like that. And so I was like, oh, that's going to probably, dust the market for a couple of days. And then you still got a couple of days bounce before you got a pullback. So it's not always linear, like where you get a big down day and then the next day it follows through. There's a little bit of a process to these kind of things. Armando, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think the similar thing. I think I would expect us, how we get there, tomorrow could be, I was making a note too that if we gap down tomorrow, it might be actually a quick bounce at the open for a day trade perspective. If we get like a gap down, I think I was looking, we have some economic numbers coming out tomorrow. The PM, let me take a look here.
Let's take a look.
S&P Flash U.S. Services PMI and U.S. Manufacturing PMI at 9:45. So that would be, 15 minutes after the market opens. That could thrust us down a little bit. I think unless we get some new news in the market, I think, like I said, I mean, we get I think the pullbacks are probably going to be relatively shallow. I don't, like I said, I think this market personally, where I think we can keep kind of looking for, 1 or 2 days of short action, but I don't think it's like, I don't see a scenario where we get into this big epic, crash scenario. I think the NASDAQ goes as the semis go, so keeping an eye on the SMH and QCOM and NVIDIA, what their consolidation ends up looking like is going to, be a signal to, I think, the rest of the market,
I think that's definitely a possibility here. One thing we should always be mindful of too is that, anytime you think the market can't do anything, like it can, right? So we should be, just one thing I've noticed is that anytime I get complacent about the market, that's when the market ends up dumping. So you do have to be a little bit careful, let's see what kind of, Armando's mentioned we got a little data for tomorrow. So what's the date today? Let's go in 21st. Old Benzinga. See, you got chunk. Economic year-over-year core retail sales. This is for Canada. Let's filter this bad boy out here. All right, there we go. Old US to the A.
I also saw some stuff about S&P rebalancing. I'm not necessarily sure that's something that I fully, how that affects things, but that's rebalancing, and then OPEX, I believe, is tomorrow as well. So
yeah, so I think it's a MOPEX, so it's the monthly OPEX too. So I think tomorrow's going to have a lot of range, guys. So when you have OPEX, like oftentimes the positioning can get really weird, with the market makers and the dealers. So you do have to be a little bit careful. Sometimes on OPEX you get like one big kind of honk and move. And then, oftentimes you can just switch back around. So it's not always, I don't think, always the easiest days. You will get some positioning. But what ended up happening, so everybody was expecting this NVIDIA dump to be tomorrow. So we've been conditioned of recent, anytime the market dumps off, in terms of these rubber band shorts, these really extended shorts, they've been happening on Fridays, right? So like if you look back, this last NVIDIA dump, the big Mama Jamma, and it doesn't look so big now because it's $100, but this dump was on a Friday. The SMCI, right? The big honking dump here on 2-16, dude, it was on a Friday. And what happens is because these stocks are so expensive and the options get so cheap on Friday, because, if you want to trade SMCI calls and puts, even on Monday, Tuesday, they're fucking expensive. And I'm not like, like Bracco, you've got good discipline. Like, you buy 2 contracts and get the fucking $10,000 gain and hold for the real move. I want to buy like fucking 50 contracts and fucking and get crushed or try to crush sometimes on these. So on Friday, they're so expensive. So Fridays, it's so much easier. But you can also get, smoked out. So we have been conditioned a little bit to have these dumps on Friday. So today when everything rolled, granted the setup was there. I think a lot of people were maybe caught off guard. Now the setup was there. I think we took NVIDIA short as soon as it broke under the VWAP. And, you had like this nice waterfall, fill the gap, and then boom, pop up, and, you kept it going. I was actually not even at the computer by the end of this one. I think that this is like this is a huge move. But like if you look back, so let's just try to gauge, last time NVIDIA had a dump like this, kind of what happened. So if you look here, if we're going back in March, the last time NVIDIA had this huge dump, you gapped down a little bit and then had a quick spike down, and then there was not much really left to it, right? And the next third day you had a big pop. And so then what ends up happening is, right, you chop around for like periods of time. And one thing to remember with NVIDIA is like when it gets extended like this, it tends to actually pull back and consolidate for long periods of time. If you look at even here from March, like the last time it had this big dump, just like today, right? It ended up going sideways for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And then if you look back, right, into January, right, you had how many months of just consolidation? I mean, in reality, probably even from here, right? So you had July, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months of consolidation. Then it runs for a couple months. And then it goes sideways for 4 months and then runs for a couple months. So if you're just looking at its past history, once you start to have like this kind of shakiness going, it doesn't just, it doesn't necessarily have to crash down or anything like that. But what you have to remember is that you are the last man to the gangbang. If you're trying to buy NVIDIA for an investment right now, you are literally the last man to the gangbang. And that's fine. If you're coming out of prison, right? If you're coming out of prison and you're lonely, sure. But if you're not, then, there's no reason to. You always want to be number one. You can be number two. If there's a smoking bunch of hot chicks and you don't know anybody else, so nobody's going to ever find out, sure, you can come in and be number three, be a little casual about it, right? But you got to be careful here, guys. You don't want to be the last one. And so just remember from here, just what happened last time we had one of these candles. We chopped around for a little bit. And, we very well might do that again. Like this, do this a $3 trillion company. It's gone up fucking 50% in the last, so time. So I do think the market looks great. The QQQs look great. There's still some stocks that are really left to go. It just may not be this anymore. Armando, what do you think? Like if this starts to consolidate, where does the money go to?
I don't know. Your rant about the last man in the game man got me thinking today. I have some Facebook pages that for stocks that I've been involved. Like, I followed 7 years ago, and I just look on my newsfeed today, and people are saying this one guy, he's like, I've been waiting for NVIDIA to have its first down day. Do you think it's a good time to start a position now? And it made me think. I was like, man, where have you been for the last 2 years? I mean, you're just coming in at the end here. And that just made me remind me of that this, random person, whoever he is, I just want to be like, yeah, go all in right now. But, I don't, as for what happens with NVIDIA, I'm not sure. But one thing I was thinking about, and maybe you can tell me what you think about this idea, given that, we get this huge pullback in the semis, right? And QQQ. And as far as I know, I didn't see any news on anything going on. But, there's people have been talking, as you said, everybody's saying the breadth is bad, nothing's running or whatever. And that's not necessarily true. There are, if you're willing to put in some work, I think things that you can find, and ideally, actually, I think when there's only 5-6 names running, it's actually easier for me because I'm not sitting there trying to watch 20 names and my focus is a little bit better.
This is America, man. Everybody's breadth is bad, right?
Yeah.
So, guys, get used to it.
Your old Uncle Tony used
to whisper on you with booze on his breath and sausage links, asking if you want some candy. Like, get used to it. Everybody's got bad breath, man. You go to England, people got, look at their teeth. Bad breath too, man. People got to get used to it. This is the new world.
And what I was thinking too, and you can tell me your thought on this, if we do get some like longer, whatever, consolidation, few weeks, month or two on these semis, given that we're not really, fading off news, we're just kind of due for some consolidation. Does that actually allow some of this money that's been flowing into semis day after day to kind of move to other names? And is that something I'm going to be watching for?
Rocco just pointed this out that, he thought maybe Google breaks out, plays a little catch up with some of its friends, a little bit. For me, it's got the look. It is late. All of these are late in the stage. So, guys, when you think about like stages of bases, you have like breakout 1, breakout 2, breakout 3, right? Breakout 4. We're getting into some late stages of bases. Amazon's got a breakout look right here. So you do have these kind of a handful of names that are still consolidating. Now, these are the mega caps, right? So, like, what else could go?
That's what I'm kind of wondering here.
We don't actually know. Because if you look at, like, mid-cap, right? Mid-cap tech, that's like your SQs, huge shitter, right? Your PayPal type stocks, huge, nasty, right? Really, it's not even that it's in a downtrend, like where it's playable. Like, it's just, this is nasty, right? This is this is something you got nothing to do. This is a butterface, right? There ain't nothing to do with this. Like, so then, okay, what else? Like, you got your Affirms, nothing here, right? You got your UPSTs, right? Nothing really here. So this is where like the real deep dive into indexes is going to probably happen, to keep an eye on things like, okay, is it biotech? Maybe like, you get something like a biotech. Look at the range. This is the IBB and it's not there yet, right? But like, if the IBB, let's set an alert here at like 140. Okay. So if the IBB starts to cook, then, that would bring on these. There's thousands and thousands of freaking biotechs, right? Even the IBB, there's 206 names. So you have tons of so if something like this goes, that would be pretty positive for the market. I think that could get us, a little bit juicy, right? We've been consolidating since we topped out in 2021. So, something like that could be like a real positive. We thought maybe solars were bottoming, and then it looked like solars were bottoming. It really did. And then, dude, they just did what they always do, which is like they just took a massive blumpkin, right? Right? A massive blumpkin right on your porch. They looked great. You finally broke out of this big trend line, and then you're over the 200-day moving average, and then they broke down, and so that looked like maybe we had something like you can see here. This is ENPH. It looked like we had a range break here, and then boom, it's done, right? So there's still sellers coming into all of this stuff. China looked like it could be really hot for a second. Like you came out of this bottoming pattern, you had a big trend, and then, you've just kind of been in the shitter for the last couple of weeks now. It's not necessarily in a downtrend, but it's not been like an easy pullback either. Like if you look at the Chinese names like Baba, I mean, this is a bear flag. So you don't have anything there either. So, we have not that many places to hide. We don't know where the next sector is going to be. You can do a deep dive into all of this stuff, and it's just a giant kind of poo-poo platter of stuff. But it doesn't matter, because as long as you have like 5, 6, 7 stocks to trade, then that's what you do. Now, the good thing is, look, on 7/17, right, Alcoa comes out. Earnings season is the best time to trade. That's to kick off the earnings season. And there's going to be just some hot to trot stocks, like no matter what, And I think at least in our methodology, like that's, I don't know about you, Armando, but like having, trading like the same thing every day is like, all right. But like earnings plays, PR plays, I mean, that's the real sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. I love the ability to, kind of react and like intraday action, not having to do too much technicals on the daily, and you kind of can, stick and move. And that's kind of where I think a lot of our edge comes in, is our speed and our ability to kind of react to these situations and, get follow through.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on. So what do you got? Like, let me give me an idea. What are you watching for tomorrow?
For tomorrow, well, one of these that the liquidity finally came in today. I'm kind of what did I write about? NNE, which was on our watch list yesterday, I think it closed about 35% away from the 9 EMA. So if we can get one more thrust up on that, or see how we open tomorrow, I think that's probably getting pretty close to ready. Before today, it didn't really meet my parameters. It's like 3 million is kind of my minimum. So sure. It kind of got into that area a little bit today. So if it stays a little bit more liquid tomorrow, I think that's something I'll be watching for the short. I had my big idea on the Donald Trump stock, DJT. I know the offering just came out, so I think it's something to be mindful of, that they're still going to be diluting the shit out of the stock at some point here whenever these warrants get exercised. But for a day trade, there's probably a double-digit percentage bounce coming up sooner rather than later here, if we can get one more thrust down on this one as well here.
Got it. So, guys, what he's talking about here is what's called a rubber band setup. So a rubber band setup is a very simple setup. It is when you have stocks that get so overbought or oversold in one direction that you have no choice but to go the other way. And so the key tenets of a rubber band setup is when you have multiple down days in a row, right? For 4, 5, 6 down days in a row, you need the candles completely piercing the lower Bollinger Band. That's a sign of extreme stretch. Then what we're looking for is, right, a really oversold stochastics. Anything under 20 is oversold. But for rubber band setup, you need something that's under 10, all right? That's the ideal. So now, like, the old low here is about 22. So if this thing gaps down tomorrow, you have a basis to measure the risk off. So it's already outside the lower Bollinger Band. The stochastics are already there. Now it's just a measure of finding a level. Like if it gapped up tomorrow, the setup is busted, right? But if it gaps down tomorrow, now you're getting towards this low. I mean, hot diggity damn! Like you're into something. Mm-hmm. What would you do with this? Like, how would you wanna play this?
Okay, well, so two things. Like you said, if we open up flat, unless we get a huge thrust down, 8% tomorrow, that's just a leave alone if we don't get a big gap down. So let's say we get the gap down that we're kind of looking for. I'd be going down to the 2 and 5 minute time frames, and I'd be looking for some of the price action, to kind of confirm that, okay, are there some buyers coming in? And I'd be looking for something that we call an opening range breakout or breakdown. Okay. And essentially the way I would look to play it is I would be looking for, or another way, one of my favorite ways if we get this is actually if we open up, create a 5 minute range, and we break the low of that range, but immediately come back into it and kind of get one of those hammer candles that's essentially displaying a fake breakdown on the 5 minute chart. And then look to kind of take a starting position to that and then add when we officially break the high of the day. But essentially, in simple terms, what I'm looking for you know, without having the chart to kind of show you exactly what I mean, is I'm looking for some of the intraday price action on the 2 and 5 minute time frames to kind of show that, hey, is there an opportunity to get in with a small risk to kind of play this bounce and show that there's buyers actually coming in to kind of, you know, not just blindly buy as soon as the market opens, but is there a place that we can base our risk off of using the 2 and 5 minute charts and kind of look to get into the long side is one of the ways I would look to do it, you know.
All right. So let's add this bad boy to the watch list, guys. This is your classic. Look, this stock's a big turd. Not only is it a turd, it's probably a sub $5 stock.
At some point, yes. It's this isn't a swing.
What we're talking about is for tomorrow. All right. Mm-hmm. DJT does less revenue than I do. That's fact. It does less revenue than I do. Considerably less profits. So if you're doing less revenue than bulls on Wall Street, you've got fucking problems because, I mean, we're just a fucking bunch of degenerates that are, you know, making YouTube videos and stuff, right? So you got problems. For a hot second, dude, this thing looks really good. So let's add this to the list for tomorrow. Like, I like your idea on it. And guys, the opposite of this setup would be like, you know, we've been shorting this EMU. Mm-hmm. This is the same setup on the upside, right? So it's like you're kind of trending, and then when you get the candles completely outside the upper Bollinger Band, right? You get the stochastics in the 90s. You know, you're really setting up for that quick snap back. You know, that's the rubber band. The further you stretch that rubber band, right, the further that snapback is. And so that's what makes the rubber band setup so powerful. Now, counter trend trading is a bitch. It really is. I mean, in almost all instances, counter trading is a bitch. It's just like, how many paper cuts can you take to your balls before, you know, you just realize that you have no balls left, right? And it's like, that's what happens when you counter trend. So the only time you want to do it is when you get the unique scenario where the rubber band gets so stretched that you have no choice, right, but to take it down. I mean, it's for moral reasons. Like, it's like at some point you have to show the market, you have to show these stocks what a good old-fashioned American justice looks like, right? Just because we're letting people run around like criminals on the West Coast and in certain cities does not mean we have to do it in the day trading world, you know? And so when you get into the rubber band, sometimes you just got to show a little American justice and take these bad boys down. So candle outside the upper Bollinger Band, 90 stochastics, and then there's the eye test. If you can fit two thumbs between price and 9 EMA, that's, now you got some cushion, right? Because that 9 EMA will be a magnet. And so you have a magnet to get that all the way back down, you know, so you've got tons of room to go, right? And, you know, very similar, right arm kind of, right? You get so far from the 9 EMA, two thumbs. And I'm just talking about regular person thumbs, not like a English blacksmith or something from the 1400s, but, you know, just regular old thumbs is going to do it. Two thumbs, 90 stochastics, candle outside the upper Bollinger Band. And then, you know, you want to, look, Bracco, you're right. You want to be looking for those gaps, right? The gap, like MU is a really good one because, you know, you're getting gaps like gap. You're getting multiple days of gaps. So if you look here, right, like, you know, gap up today, gap up yesterday, gap up the day before. So once you start kind of skipping over there, that's when you're really starting to, dude, that's when you're starting to really stretch out that rubber band. So just something to be mindful of. So let's take a look. Like, okay, so we have, you know, some of these semiconductors, they may be dead for a couple of days. So where can we go? I'm thinking this Meta Nation, especially on a Friday, if the market holds, you know, you've got this bottoming pattern that's happened, right? So you got the gap down on earnings. And then you've been just kind of ripping, riding, slipping, sliding all the way up. And now you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 day consolidation. You know, and Meta is also one of those ones that for some reason likes to get a little juicy, a little saucy on Fridays. We've got a sweet spot here. If you look at kind of like more of a 30-minute chart, I think probably 504, 505 does it. This market is not a confirmation market. Like a little confirmation is good, but you don't want to be the president of the confirmation society in a hot market, right? So if the market is red hot and you're trying to be, El Presidente of the confirmation society, you're going to have a lot of trouble. So just something to kind of keep in mind. So I do like this one. What else you watching, Armando?
So a couple other ones. I think that some of these Bitcoin stocks are in an interesting place. Specifically, I liked, I'm not really sure I like the CSLK or Mara very much anymore. I'm not sure they're giving, the best signals versus some of these other stocks like Iron and Hut are actually kind of, Hut closed over its range break today. Iron is kind of still flagging, tightening up here. It might be ready for another move in either direction. I think is potentially on watch depending on what the market and Bitcoin does. I'm kind of watching Iron to see what it does here with this tightening flag it's been in a bit, and then as well as this Hut I like as well. It kind of closed over this range today and had a really nice 2-minute opening range breakout too as well this morning.
Good. So the Hut Nation and then Iron. So guys, the Iron, is showing a little bit of a makeshift flag. Ideally another day would be nice, but we're not always getting those in this market. If you get a little bit of a dipsy-do at the open, watch and see if the buyers start to show up on this thing, they probably break it out over this 14 and the chase is on. In this market, oftentimes, 4 or 5 days is really all that we've needed to kind of get the shred back on. So keep an eye on this one. I really liked this cipher, but it was trading like a little grande today. It had 24 million shares in volume, which is the biggest it's had in quite some time. I mean, and really this whole run since back over here, so let's kind of look back at, it's got a level here at 550 and it did get rejected here today, which is not a buenos, but it's not really the end of the world. Like crypto stocks are turds. And so they get rejected all the time. They just do. But if you look at the weekly here, you've got TAS. It just needs to kind of clear this 575, and you've got a lot of room. You got a lot of room to the upside. The downside is, of course, that it's a little bit of a spiky McGee, and spiky McGees are tough, right? Spiky McGees are a little bit tough. You can see here today a wick down. Now, part of the reason is just too far away from the 9 EMA. So if you're talking about breakouts, guys, what are the odds? Like, if you talk about breakouts, what are the odds that this stock breaks out and holds and closes with really no PR so far from the 9 EMA? It's minimal, right? So what we want to make sure we're doing is like, yes, it failed the breakout kind of, but it wasn't really a breakout. Like for us, right? It's not considered a breakout unless you got that curls for the girls coming up under the kitchen. Meaning unless the pattern is tight, it's not really ripe for a breakout. You're expecting it to kind of fail and back and fill a little bit. So if this back and fills for a day or two, I think that'll kind of tighten this bad boy up and we'll be ready to party on this bad boy. What else you got, Armando?
I saw that Penn has having some rumors of being bought out here or acquired by this BYD. That's actually shown a little bit of heat. I think it's something to be mindful too, and you've coached this into me. After these kind of big days, it's not uncommon to get a little bit of a rest day in between, which can make it a little bit difficult tomorrow. And, like I said, personally, I'm not entirely sure it's the time to get super aggressive on the shorts. I think depending on how we open and react to that news tomorrow, 15 minutes into the day, that can kind of give us an entry, depending on which way we want to play it from a day trade perspective. But I think, when I have a little bit of difficulty kind of like having a full, idea of, do I think we're going to fade tomorrow? Do I think it's going to be an inside day? Do I think it's going to be balanced? I think all those are on the table. I do like to focus on, PRs and something that's kind of moving to in its own order flow a little bit here. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit of action in the morning too as well. to kind of complement what we made tonight as well, to see, you know what I mean, to kind of like let the market settle where it may and shake out a bit here. But yeah, I'm
damn.
I'm
So
wondering
guys,
if you think it's viable to take down the semis again tomorrow. I'm not so sure. It's like I said, it's been such a tough market to kind of do that stuff into. So
yeah, I think
for day two,
the semis will be waiting to see. You know, with OPEX and stuff like that, I don't have the good read because theoretically, in theory, you know, if you have this kind of bearish engulfing candles, you should have some downside post that. The question becomes, is it downside the next day, right? You very well could just ramp back up, make a lower high, and then kind of drift a little bit lower, right? You know, today was the day to get the big, probably, you know, the big flushy McGee, right? You had 12, 13 points in, you know, whatever that might be. And same thing with MU, right? You know, double top, get down to 1-4. That's 14 points. I mean, look at the puts on this thing, 800%, 1,000%, 1,000%. Like this is some fucking FU money right here, right? So you just, you know, today might have been the day. And this has happened a couple times in the last few weeks where they're pulling the rugs on Thursdays because everybody's expecting them on Fridays. And so we'll see kind of what happens. MU's got earnings out next week. So I'm not necessarily sure on this one. You know, it probably, if it ramps back down to here, then it's going to gap up on earnings. That's what's typically been happening. If it shows a little bit of weakness before. Going back to this pen, though, I like the idea of this because you got a big base breakout here. And, you know, you had a little bit of a push. Let's see how this reacts tomorrow. You know, if you're looking on any specific time frame, this has got a good God-fearing look to it. I like the overall look. It's 17 million shares in volume, which it usually, you know, doesn't do much. But if you start to see here, it's been in accumulation for a little bit of time here. And that's not, you know, that's the real deal right there. So let's add this thing in. I like the overall look of it. I think we watch this tomorrow. If it starts to hold this 1950, you know, let's see if, you know, we get a little bit of, you know, let's see if we get a little bit of fun on this bad boy. Heck yeah. Let me check. Hey, John Law. Nobody breaks the law like John Law. Yo, what up? Hey, this BTDR is, I mean, it's hot. There's no getting around this. Yeah, this is hot. So I like that. Whoa. Just happened here. Hold on. I got a little echo. Good. What the fuck? Hold on here. I got a little echo. All right. Going to BTDR. Johnny, I think you got a good spot on this one. You know, and it's got room up to 14. You know, if it could get there, it does trade a little bit thin on volume. But, dude, that's got a good look on it. What do you guys think, man? A 10 spot? A little $10 roll?
Ooh.
Not bad. I wish I had a little bit more liquidity. But, frankly, unless you're trading like, you know, 10,000 shares, it's not going to matter. Guys, you know, liquidity is awesome. But unless you're trading some size on it, you know, worrying about if a stock does 3 million shares a day and you're trading 1,000 shares of this, 2,000 shares of this, you don't have to worry about the liquidity. You know, the liquidity matters, right? When you're trying to move around like 10,000, 15,000 shares of it, you know, it's nice to have more volume, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like the stock is going to just be ripping. Rahim! Assalamu alaikum, my friend.
Ooh,
What's going on? What's going on?
Oh, man.
Yo, you can do this one too. This one is the same type of deal. 1.6 million shares in volume. It's just a little bit thin. It's just a little bit thin on volume. Like you just don't have that to go into it. So you can trade this. This is another one where like if you got, you know, trading 5,000 shares or less on this, I don't think it's a big deal. Like you can roll in and take this bad boy. It's got a $4 break on it. You know, if you go on the hourly, you got a $4 breakout on this. Like, why not? You know, why not? I'd roll with it. Heck yeah. Cool. Let's get into some of these other names here I've got on the watch list here. Billabong. Okay, Billabong. So Billabong gapped up on a upgrade today, and it just farted around here. I'm looking for any tap back on this into this breakout spot. I think that this one's got some legs on it. It's probably going to be more of a swing type of setup because it just is not – all these China names, number one, I mean, they're all fugazis, but they all tend to gap up a lot. So watch and see how this back end fills. But I think it's got a spot on it. Let's add this one. You know, we talk about Cypher here. I think it just needs to tighten up for 2 days. Halo. This is a good God-fearing Christian stock right here. You know, this stock pops up on earnings, comes back into the bone zone, right? That's your shading area between the 920 EMA. And now you're really tightening up here. And what you really want to see on these things is, right, you want to see that 9 EMA just kind of curling right up under it and pushing it into the breakout. That's going to allow you to kind of limit the risk a little bit. It's going to allow you to pull some tightness into it. And dude, then you're in for a nice little shredder. Yo, mRNA, Armando, what do you think about this one? You know, I had this on watch for a rubber band setup for the test of the 50. It's close.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't necessarily get there. This is more your type of setup because you are, you know, as a millennial, you tend to be more counter trend. You guys are always trying to fight
for better or for worse. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at that and NVAX. I mean, they're kind of giving me a similar look to it as well. Yeah, I think that one of the things when I look for on these is like, you know, if you go down to the hourly chart on this mRNA or on NVAX, you know, what I really like to do is I like to, if you can see that you're kind of on since it's been drifting down for about 2 weeks now, you kind of have that series of lower highs on the hourly. We had a pretty big push on it in the open today. And I think that candle topped out at 136.70. I think that would be a trigger to me to kind of like, okay, are we getting the bounce going, to kind of watch that area for the confirmation that we might be getting a little bit of a daily bounce going here. That's kind of how I like to play these when I'm looking to kind of play a counter trend, is I like to see, you know, the time frame just a step lower, which I use the hourly to kind of signal that we're going to be getting that hourly bounce going on that. But I like it as well too. And that would be kind of what I'd be looking for as a trigger, you know, a little bit of consolidation just under that, above that 136 level, and maybe get a flag and then break above that. So
guys, check out the area between the 9 and 20, this red shading area. This is the bone zone. Mm-hmm. You know, when you are looking at reversal plays, you know, if you check the bone zone on the hourly, when you start to, you know, break over it and the bone zone changes, right, it literally subtly shift from, you know, red to green, then you know that the trend is shifted back, and then you can kind of start hitting the dips on it, so you don't have to necessarily step in front of it. So you got a good spot here. You got multiple levels of support. You got the 50-day moving average. You know, the only issue on this one is that this company is just a big gelatinous, smelly turd, and so you do have to be a little bit careful. But man, hey, it's got something there. So I like the overall look of this. We talk about Meta. I think this thing, if the market holds up tomorrow, if you have a weak open, guys, and you push down into 495 and you hold, like I think it probably gets bought up, and then we watch for the little reversal and break. I think so. Adobe, what do you think of this one? We don't trade this one that often, Armando. What do you think of this one? So this one, they're putting it in the AI basket now. They're putting in the AI basket, right? Because they're using AI to, well, make graphics or something. We use Adobe products for a lot of things. So I have noticed that they built in some, you know, AI-ish features. What do you think on this? So guys, this one, it gapped up on earnings. It is, you know, it's very pricey, of course. And it does trade a little bit thin at times, but now it's at 6 million shares. You think this one needs more time, or you think it can go?
Personally, for my style, I would think it needs a bit more time on it. It's just not, You know, I mean, like I said, for a long, I would really want to see it kind of get over that 535, you know, the high of the gap up day to kind of say, okay, then it gives you that kind of line in the sand to play against to kind of, you get that immediate feedback, like versus kind of playing around in the middle there, or at least approach that area to kind of look for you know, an intraday level to kind of like entry and base our risk off of. But I do like it when they're kind of flagging like this. I would want to tighten up a little bit or get above that level so that I kind of have some confirmation of it that we're following through here. This BBY too still has kind of a similar basket. It's had that push here too. It might need a couple more days, but did have that 106 upgrade, you know, a couple days ago. So
so the BBY, that was a nice setup. So this is your quintessential, right? Run on earnings, flag out, let the 90 EMA catch up, and then break loose. The reason I liked Adobe was, you know, obviously you got the gap here on earnings. And then, you know, if you're thinking about stocks in the AI basket, there's not that many left that are like more near, you know, lows than highs. So I'm curious about this. I mean, there ain't many left, right? That are at least not extended and all of this kind of stuff. So if we're thinking that this thing has a chance to, you know, this sector has a chance to go, then, you know, we want to get our boots and coots in something like this. So I'm watching this. If it breaks here, it may just be a day trade to the kind of 200-day moving average. You know, Armando's right. A little bit of back and filling here would set up for a much nicer move.
I also think Bracco's Chewy might not had an inside day today. It might maybe need one more day, but you know, it's something that was pretty hot. I think it's undeniable, you know, what it did a couple of days ago. So I'd definitely be watching that one as well.
Guys, so Chewy had this monster cock rip. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with so, I'm sorry. I don't know why these words come out of my mouth. Chewy had this monster rip and went from 23 to 27. Also on big volume, you hit 30 million shares. It really doesn't do much. Most days it's at like 5-6 million shares. So you ended up ripping here, and now you got an inside day. So in this market of the last, I don't know, year or so in this bull market, the inside day setup has been the money spot. It's been the money spot for day trading, meaning you have like a really, really hot day, and then the next day you're just kind of like right inside that previous day's range. You're just inside that previous day's range, and that ends up being like, dude, it's been the hottest setup. You know, if you're looking at like any of the AI names, the semi names, like the number one setup we've been doing it on, especially when they've been extended, it's the inside day setup. I mean, the inside day setup is a buenos noches, muchos buenos noches.
And I've noticed that a few times on it's the day 3 after the inside day, like, you know, for a couple of examples that came to me recently, you know, where, you know, you try it on the day 2, you kind of get the failure in the red to green. But if you look at like NVAX on June 6th or ASTS on recently here, you know, they're moving after a couple inside days. You know what I mean? So, and NVAX was a really nice one. I remember watching that one. So
guys, what Armando's saying is like, okay, so you have this like big push here, right? And so you got this big, you get this big mama jamma push where it goes from 8 to 10, and then you end up spending a couple days like just in this like really, really tight range. So you're going in a really, really tight range, really, really tight range, really, really tight range. So you're building out this like just inside day range, right? Where you're like, you had this wild stock and now it becomes unwild, right? And you're just coagulating, concentrating, marinating. I think marinating is probably the proper term, right? Just marinating on the hibachi grill and woo, right? You're building up some power. Stocks get their power from consolidation. They get their power from basing. So you're just going sideways, 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 sideways. You build out that inside day range, and then you start to push through. Now you're into something. And so I think that's something. That's a something. And dude, we gotta be up on that. I like it. So going back to this, so what do we do with the Chewy? So it may need one more inside day, but it doesn't necessarily have to, right? If it kind of comes through this, it's a little bit away from 27. But if it breaks through, say you get a week open, you go red to green tomorrow. I mean, you may bust it loose. You may bust it loose. It may need a day. We'll have to see how the setup emerges, but that's got the look. I think that might be one of the top watches for tomorrow, because a lot of times these like midi cap names, like on Fridays, they can really crush some puss. SMCI rolled over today. It broke outside the upper Bollinger Band, so just completely rolled over with the rest of the market. Guys, the room, this has had multiple pieces of good news out. Tesla's using, I think the PR was Tesla's using them and Dell. Tesla's using them and Dell to do something, some server shit. I'm the worst Indian of all time. some server shit. And, you've got a range break here. It was too extended going into it, so it had to roll over with the rest of its fam. But now that you kind of relieve some of that overbought condition and the EMA is catching up, this thing has got a little bit of juice left, probably.
Check out this Zillow too when you get a sec. It's not a bad look.
I believe the rumor on this is that they're going to be added to the QQQs at some point too, which is the reason ARM is starting to get its big push. So let's keep an eye on that bad boy. What was the one you were looking at?
Zillow kind of remounting the 200 here.
All right, what do you want to do with this bad boy? Give me the juice.
No, I mean, just remounting. It's another one of those bean down names that hasn't really participated in here, but now we're kind of gap up off. I don't know if that's an earnings reaction. I feel like their earnings is pretty soon for that to be. That is earnings actually, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So we get the gap up, flag out for a bit. Nice push yesterday, Tuesday, inside day, and kind of remounting some of these longer term moving averages. I think a lot of times too, with like the Chewy example and the ASTS example, a lot of times when people miss the initial move on some of these names, they kind of like forget about them and you kind of get lulled into it. But sometimes when you get some nice PR, something driving the stock, it's worth adding to your weekly, your watch list, and to keep an eye on for the coming days for secondary setups. Just because you missed the initial push, it doesn't mean you have to just completely forget about it. And oftentimes you shouldn't be.
Guys, trading is so much about organization, right? It's so much about organization and focus. You can run all the scans you want every day, but if you can't find the things that you need to find quickly, instantly, and on time, then, all your scans are for nothing. That was one of the holdbacks of my trading careers, that I'm unorganized. And so like I'd go through these scans and I'd have these like sick lists. I'd have 20 names, 30 names, 15 names. I mean, hot names. But then what would happen is, like the market would open. I'd be sitting there staring at these 4 names that are not doing anything. And then like all these other ones start to go. So a big portion of trading is just like, how do we get organized, right? Like, how do we keep organized? Like, how do we keep everything, in the spots that they need to? So that can come from setting alerts, right? Like, like something like this Zillow, like you can start setting alerts. Like, hey, I'm going to set alert at the, previous day's high. I'm going to set alert at the support levels. I'm going to leave some notes. So like on TC2000, for example, if you click this button here and, you add in the text box here, what you can do here is actually leave yourself some notes. Like, right? And you can come in, leave yourself like just a little bit of a note, and that'll be, dude, that's going to keep you out of so much trouble. And so this is just like a little bit of that pre-market legwork, right? Making sure you draw out your levels. Then leave yourself some notes. If a stock had earnings out, it had some good news out, it had some upgrade out. Write that thing right into your TC2000 so you don't forget about it. And then you won't forget about it. Now you have it, right? Now you got it. And so when you're starting to sift through your stocks, it's like, boom, it just hits you, right? You're like, you remember. Because oftentimes if you have a big, long watch list, you're just flipping through the stocks. You're hitting them and you don't really remember anything. And I mean, half this country's on fucking Xanax and Adderalls. Like, most of you guys are zombies anyway. So, you're just flipping through your stocks. You probably need all the notes you can get, right? I mean, if you're a white girl from California, I mean, you probably hopped up on Starbucks, Xannies, and all sorts of stuff. Like, you're flipping through those stocks. Like, you ain't going to remember your own notes. You got to add those on your TC2000, so that you have it right in front of your face. All about organization, all about organization. It's the one thing that held me back for a really long time. I like the overall look of this. Let's add this to the list, Armando. What else you got?
Still flipping here. Give me a second. Flipping through some of the 90-35 day right now, going through them a little bit here.
What about this one? What do you think of this?
I just saw that, actually. Yeah. I hate a lot of these hot ones, kind of like SMR today. They have such hot breakouts going into the day, but I think the market kind of weakness kind of smacked them back down to the point where they may need a day or two to kind of, let the EMA catch up and see if we hold and give it another attempt here. But like exactly like SMR today, just super hot breakout going into it, then just got smacked with the rest of the market.
Yeah, it's got a spot here, but it did get rejected at resistance. Mm-hmm. Now, it wasn't that tight, though. Like, you didn't get that 9 EMA curling up under the kitchen, right? Like, you need that 9 EMA curling up right up under the kitchen. That helps a lot. Like, if you can get that, then you're in for really like a lot more.
Another one I just saw too is, it's tough because it's been such a dog, but this VFC had just the biggest dog shit earnings. I was playing the earnings a few weeks ago and it had just the biggest dog shit earnings ever, but it's rallied off those earnings, and I've been tracking for a while now on its earnings, and it's just been getting hit every earnings, just awful and awful. But when they get these kind of signals where it's kind of rallying off of literally like the worst news ever, and I kind of like the volume coming into that, a little bit too as well.
Yeah, 6 million.
Mm-hmm. And just just the volume profile you can kind of see is just a little bit better than it's been here. So, it's tough to say because it has came a long way. It's up, I think, 30% since that earnings day. But
yeah, but in the scheme
not a terrible look.
In the scheme of things where things are moving thousands of percent, 30% is not much. So what would you do? Do you wait for the stock? Like, say you like this stock. Do you wait for it to break the level on the daily before you try it intraday? Or would you try it on a good intraday setup before it breaks on the daily?
I would say it's a little bit of a dependence on it. For this one, I would probably want to see it above this 14 level, so like kind of the final resistance 14, 15. I would want to kind of see a little bit of confirmation because, there's not necessarily recent news necessarily driving it. So I think it depends a little bit on, do I feel that there's a sense of urgency to get in on this, right? Like, is there a lot of shorts in it? Is there, something like, very obvious that this is going to go. So for this one, I would look to kind of start to get in around this 14 area. Like on, for example, it closed 1391 today, right? I might take a little bit on the red to green, anticipating that we're going to give attempt at 14, sell half into the initial push. And then now you're kind of, sitting with a position you can work with to see if you can get a little bit more follow through. So ideally, like you said, I mean, something you always say, we don't want to be the president of confirmation. I've kind of lived by that, if you get a stock that gives good range of momentum, anticipating a little bit, taking a little bit off then, and now you're kind of in a position of power where you can see what's shaping up now with the rest of the action and play around with the position. It's kind of how I like to do things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So essentially I would anticipate it, look to sell some, and then see if I can find an entry to get back in once we get a little bit of confirmation that we're holding above that 14 level, let's say. And then, that's how I would look to play something like this.
Let me ask you this. So guys, when we're looking at stocks, you have a handful of metrics you're looking at. So one of the things that we like to always watch, of course, these days, everybody, people always talk about float. And that's usually the sucker's gambit. Like 2000, 10 years ago, we were all like obsessed with float, but like now it doesn't matter as much because the algos push even like higher float things considerably, right? Like Nvidia's got a 30 billion share float, right? It still moves fine. So the float on this is small, but what do you do? Like, do you get scared away by the ATR because it's only 45 cents? Or do you expect the ATR to expand because the ATR might be just low because it's stuck in range?
I look for something that's tracking, right? So I have, I've gone with this a few times. I have a minimum ATR that I'm even willing to trade, right? And that's 3% on it. So essentially, if the stock's $100, I want to see it doing at least an ATR of $3, right? Because that gives you the volatility that we need to capture, some type of movement in there. So I'm first analyzing kind of that. And then I'm analyzing, let's just say I'm looking for a bullish and we get an opening at 1380, 1370, you know what I mean? You have to be kind of combining, okay, what is the ATR lately? And, I'm entering and it's already moved, let's just say it's moved 30 cents, 40 cents. Am I really trying to take an entry here, with that perception? Because personally, I'm not sure that I would say that this is giving me, anything that says that this is going to explode of it. It has a technical setup. So I would take a shot, but I would definitely be, wanting this to have an open near that 14 level. You know what I mean? Because that's what I'll be looking for the breakout, right?
Now, what do you think of this CLSK? This thing's been a heartbreaker for me, so I'm curious.
I think I kind of made it on my list on these miners. So excluding Iron and Hut, because I think some of these other miners are showing some good signals. Like this Mara, Riot, and CLSK, I mean, they've been in a range for, 3 months now, coming up on 3 months. I kind of want to just wait for them to get out of this tightening range, right? You can, they give enough that you can kind of get a little bit, I mean, I think, what is this going to, $1.68 in ATR, right? So that's like 7 to 8% roughly ATR. So it is giving enough range, right? But it's prone to, like you said, kind of, given that it's stuck in this range, it's prone to a lot of failed breakouts and breakdowns. You think it's going to flush. I remember looking to short it when I was hitting that 15 level, it comes back into range. Now it's looking to break over 20, gets rejected. So it's been tough. And I think these are one of those things that once they get going, they present, a month, 2 months of really good opportunity that makes
it a little bit go. Yeah,
it's a little bit easier.
Breakout.
It's almost a little
if
easier.
You see here, guys, they've just been faking out because, they haven't completely set up yet. And so, like, every time you chase it, they just die. But they
as day traders, I think that, we can be a little bit more patient. Once they officially break out, the ATRs and everything like that tend to expand a little bit because other traders are now getting interested. So then it becomes a little bit easier, our job then, to just maybe wait for the volatility to come in, and then we can start jumping in on them versus having to get in on that day one. You know what I mean?
Sure. So, the reason that I'm just interested in, the reason I'm semi-interested in these is a specific part of, like, Bitcoin has not been doing anything. And they're like they seem like they're still ready to kind of bust a loose.
I have had that thought too.
And that's been kind of like in the back of my head. Hey, let me see if I can pull up a chart of Bitcoin here. Hold on, brothers and sisters.
No, I've definitely had that thought as well. I've noticed that, Bitcoin has been, it pretty much just failed its breakout. Everybody thought we were about to do it, a week or two ago. And, these, despite that, have actually still shown some signs of strength. So I have had that in the back of my mind as well.
Yeah. So let me see. Let me pull up this like IBIT. So you see, this is IBIT. So this is just the ETF for Bitcoin, guys. It's been just stuck under all-time highs, but it's been really grinding back for the last 6-7 days. And even then, it's perking its pickle a little bit. Like this thing has been going down and it's oversold. Bitcoin's oversold. Probably is going to pop in the next few days. But the interesting part comes in is like, okay, so this is some level of oversold. And all of the sudden, though, these miners have been going. So like while Bitcoin's been going down, like this Iran went on this just guerrilla run over here, right? And you started to see, right, BTDR, right, go on this huge run while simultaneously Bitcoin's pulling back. And then Armando was talking about, what was the HUT?
Yeah,
The
HUT
HUT's
had a
been doing the
nice
same
opening
thing.
move today, just at the morning.
So while Bitcoin's been pulling back all these days, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, Bitcoin's been pulling back and HUT's been going up. So my thinking has been like, okay, these stocks are going up, right? So they have the relative strength while simultaneously Bitcoin's been going down. Even fucking Cypher's going, right? So what we need to be doing is getting a little goose in the gander on this thing and maybe stepping in front of this thing. You know what? If Bitcoin starts to bounce, then theoretically, right, these stocks should get juicy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should get real juicy. So I want to have some of these on the watch list, because even if they're not really ready to go tomorrow, there is something happening right now, which is the minute Bitcoin firms up, then these stocks are going to ramp. And they're already ramping a little bit. And so they got to be a huge priority. Coin is sitting here right on the 50-day moving average too. And this is the thing with pullback trades, guys. The reason why people like breakout trades is that there's a recency bias. What I mean by recency bias is when stocks are going up, right? You can see it, you feel it, and so you assume stock goes up, stock is good. And then what inevitably happens, even if it's on a short-term basis, if a stock starts to pull back, then right, we see the pain of the pullback. If we're in it or if we're just watching it, we have the pain of the pullback, and so we inherently, right, oh, the stock is bad, it's not for us, whatever it might be. And so we take our eye off it. But this was 265, now you're at 235, so you retraced $30. That's pretty good, right? You've retraced $30, you're sitting on the 50-day moving average. So my thinking is, look, this is 1 tap, 2 tap. How many taps do we need to break out? 3, right? 3 taps. And now you're in for it, right? If it can hold this 50-day moving average, really anything from the 50 to 200, then it should start to curl its way into that 3rd tap and start to bust it. That's right, gringo. 28. That's 28, I think. 28. So this is hot. This might be, oddly, the best one, because Mara is a runde.
Now, they can go quick, right? They can go quick.
They can go from 0 to hero really, really fast, right? So even Mara, it's a huge turd. It really is. It's a shitty trader right now because it's stuck in range. I think it's a turd. It's a runde. But the reason I think that is because it's stuck in range, and so just acts like crap. As soon as it gets, let's just call this 23, 2250. As soon as it gets over 2250 and it closes there for 1 day, it's all of a sudden going to release. And it's going to work a lot cleaner. It's going to work a lot more. It's going to get a lot more juicy, right? And then all of a sudden, all the things are going to start working out. And, it's very similar to CLSK. Once you kind of clear this range, Then this range here, then it puts you in this one, right? And then, if it clears that, then sky's the limit. And look, this thing used to be, a fairly expensive. So it's got the chance. In general, coin's probably got the best location, but it's the hardest trader. This fucking stock is hard to trade. I can't even count how many times my entry on this is like always off by like the range on it is so much. I feel like my entry's always like 50 cents off, And
it doesn't act right. What do you think about this CLBT? Is kind of relatively recent IPO, kind of doing the cup and
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down with it.
And I think 1326 was the all-time high. So if it breaks out here, it might not be a bad look.
I just don't like these kind of stocks because it's like I'm stuck watching them move. Like for me, I don't like watching stocks like for hours that are going to move 20 cents. I get why you like it though, because it's like, well, percent is percent, right? So, it moves 4%. 4% is percent. So, I get that logic of it, but in my head, I'm just like, man, I'm watching this fucking thing for 2 hours. It's moved 20 cents, And so I always stink at these ones unless they just get really rowdy. And it did get really rowdy a few days ago. So I think it's got a chance. And then you got this IPO high here. If you like these kind of teenagers in terms of the stocks, I mean, this has got a spot here. I like it.
This course here too had a little bit of a pullback. It's been a sneaky kind of hot one too that I haven't really been watching a ton here, but probably should have been paying a bit more attention.
Yeah, this one's actually got a little bit more ATR. It's at 97 cents, 10%. It's a good amount of ATR. Good. All right, so let's kind of go into let's wrap this up and go into the phase for tomorrow. So we got the Meta Nation. I think out of the large caps, Meta, Google, and Amazon out of the large caps are in the spot, right? So if you're trading kind of the grandpa stocks, then these are the ones. On the semiconductor side, this will be a more wait and see. We've seen a lot of times these things dump off for a day and then the next day they just ramp. But the overall picture of them shows that they're going to require some consolidation. Look at MU, like how many times it's consolidated. We're only thinking about this run here and we're like, wow, it just goes up forever. But look at the overall action. It consolidated from here in April all the way to June, right? And then in the previous thrusts, look how long it consolidated. Look at this here, months. And then look how long it consolidated here, months. So like when you see something like this that goes from, $50 to 100, most of the time it's actually in consolidation. It's just you get these quick thrusts for like 2 weeks, then they consolidate, and so maybe this keeps going up, but there's a good shot that it needs, according to its own history, many months of consolidation, or at least weeks. So I'm leaning towards a leave alone on the semis tomorrow. I think it's a wait and see, but I think we have other names out there, that we can trade. We got these Bitcoin names. I like coin off the 50-day moving average. Right.
I'm still liking that NNE too as well. Now that a little bit more volume came in, I know it's a little bit light for you, but I can kind of maneuver around within that still.
Yeah, I think you can. And if this gaps up tomorrow for a little rubber band short, I think that's got a good spot to it. What else?
I still got that DJT. I'll be watching.
Yeah. On a gap down, DJT, only on a gap down, guys. If it gaps up, then you leave it alone. Guys, this stock is a big, smelly turd. I mean, it has nothing to do with the politics of it. The company does like $30,000 a year in revenue. It's a $4 billion company. They're going to dilute. It's going to end up like probably like Maln or something, right? Where it's like they just pump it, then they dump it, then they pump it and dump it, and it just happens every time. Let me see WDC. And, maybe. I always feel like you need more than 1 day for a bounce. I see what you're saying, though. I think mRNA potentially, if it can rest on the 50-day moving average, you got a nice spot. May need a couple days to just rip and ride, slip and slide. We got a flag pattern on Zillow that's got a good look to it also. And yeah, keep all these little crypto stocks and all these stuff on. I think they're if Bitcoin starts popping even a little bit, they're going to really ramp up like a big time. And one thing I'm watching myself in like longer term accounts is probably see if this gold starts to run in for, right? You got 1 test, 2 tests. So you're coming in for the 3rd. I've had good luck with this one. What you do is you get go a month out, get the calls on it. They move pretty well. Gold moves like 1%. The calls usually move like 30, 40, 50%. And if this fucking breaks out, then, you're in for a nice, good, God-fearing Christian treat. Hell yeah. Anybody got any questions or anything they want to look at? Yeah, I can get you the layout. Hold on. Which one do you want? Yeah, I get it for you. Hold on.
What do you think about this FSLR maybe with TAN kind of flowing around the 50 SMA here? FSLR had a couple rest days here for a bounce maybe.
Oh, let me see.
I don't know if it kind of got ruined a little bit. It's had such a big pullback, but
FSLR.
With the preface that TAN kind of is floating at a bounce spot as well, too.
Yeah, you got a level here to dance around, 264, and then you're in a box, 264, 254. You have to trade that box one way or another. Not the easiest play with the other solar stock system like huge dumpers, but they are almost like rubber band longs now. I'm almost wondering if it's just easier to trade, ENPH or something.
I'm hoping we get some good PRs in the morning too, as well. Like I said, when I feel like the market's a little bit of a tough spot, that can always be
that. Good. Anybody got any questions? Let me see. VST. I think VST, this has had an awesome trend, by the way. It's rounding here in the 50. It may need some time to just marinate here. I do like how it's holding the 50. It just depends on how much drama it takes to digest this just epic run. When you go on a run like that from 20 to 100, you often need a lot more consolidation than you would think, and so it's got a good location, and I definitely would keep this on watch. It may just need to kind of tighten up here and see how it kind of coagulates there. Gold versus BTC long term. Yeah, I think they probably move hand in hand. I mean, BTC just moves a lot. It just moves a lot faster. Tesla, man, I had high hopes for Tesla today, but the market dumped. I think Tesla's okay, but you are stuck in range here. It's had now some just inside days here. So 1 inside day, 2 inside day. It's got a spot here. It needs to take out this trend line right here. And I think you got something. It was a nasty today, but not the end of the world nasty. So I'd wait for just a little confirmation where, let it bust that trend line. And then I think you got it. Is it is it in a spot where you can invest in it or something? No, it's a strict day trader at this point.
I do like too that it kind of initially, it had that gap up on the Elon Musk share package news, dumped for a couple of days off that, but now it's kind of that was considered bullish news, but now it's kind of starting to kind of trickle its way back up and kind of recover a little bit after the initial and sell the news dump on it. So if it gets over that 190 area, right?
You got this one on your list? Let me just mention this bad boy.
I did see that. Yeah, I forgot to bring it up, but I was looking at that one as well. It's a little bit getting long in the tooth, but you know, it is have some heat to it. So I think it's up 52% in the last 5 days, but
yeah, I agree.
But I did see that one. It's moving nicely.
Not bad, Gringo. Probably a little day trader, but getting along in the tooth. Hey, brief info. It was just like a reformatting, a little reformatting of the boot camp. Let me show you here. Yeah, we put everything into this school, which is nice. But so I got everything laid out pretty good. So you got all the recordings. I teach everything live, of course, but every single module is like a little bit more organized here. And then I'll have like slides and stuff for pretty much everything. So it's just a good overall new structured everything. Yeah, so you have like modules for everything. I do everything live, of course, as always, but there's modules for everything that you need. It's actually pretty cool. So I got all like our trade recaps, market recaps, quizzes, T2000 Masterclass, all the recordings. Then you have, setup vault, resource study guides, everything you need. Guest webinars, the whole gamut of things. It's kind of cool. Good. Anybody else got anything to say? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, my friends. I love you. As they say in France, man, 2 beers in a bucket. Look it. We out of here. Armando, thank you, bro, baby.
See you in the morning, bro.